Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Gamer Social Club Weekly News Podcast. We are recording on Friday, the 11th of July, 2025. We are recording this a little bit later than we normally would. We've given the team a bit of a break this week. Normally, obviously, we record earlier, but both Adam and V were, been working super hard. We've all been working harder, obviously, but we thought, well, try and give everybody a chance to have a bit of a break. Some of us have got holidays coming up and things like that. So, yeah, try and spread it out a bit with the relaxation as much as we can. But that does mean we are running as an army of two today, and the man who's got my back is, of course, our very own Steam Deck verified Mark, aka We Are Work the Hive. How you doing, buddy?
Hey Harry, really good mate. It's nice to be here, just a duo. It's been quite a week on the news, but that's probably a nicer thing for us after having a mad week with Xbox and showcase season recently. But smaller team, a little bit less news to talk about, but excited to get into it all the same.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a quieter period right now. But obviously, we know that we had some big news last week, which we covered and stuff like that around Xbox in particular. And we've got some cool things obviously coming up. But right now, there is a bit of a quiet period. So we're going to talk about a mixture of stories today. And as you can tell from the layout of that, we've gone to an old G look. I do not have it set up for us to normally do just the two of us with our normal layout and like that. So forgive that. And of course, again, I am your host, Harry, aka Knavish Crayfish. And yes, if you are a returning viewer, then you know all about this. But of course, if you are new to the Gamer Social Club, hello. We are part of a site that covers games through all manner of things, through news, reviews, previews, editorials, guides, and interviews. I think it was the one I missed off there. We have our sort of core tenants, our three pillars, as it were. We are a grassroots, independent, passion-fueled team of unprofessionals who started this all off just to sort of share our passion of video games with all of you. We finish every game we review. That is the second pillar. That is core to how we approach our reviews. We will not cover a game unless we've finished it, or if it's a sort of game that doesn't have an actual ending, we will do as much of it as we can before doing the review. Excuse me. And the last pillar, if I can remember, I always end up forgetting one as I'm going through all of this. What would it be? So, independent, finish our reviews. We are a rumor-free site as well. We put everything through a rumor-free filter, so you are not going to be getting ambiguous news from us. You can be sure that anything that you get from us is factual of the time of writing it, and we will do our best to keep it updated going forward. So yeah, you have that to look forward to. This is our YouTube channel. Our main site is on www.gamersocialclub.ca. That's where you can find the vast majority of our stuff. The YouTube is for our few podcasts that we run, like the weekly news podcast you're watching right now, our Gamer Social Club Party Chat, which happens on the weekends, and also Gamer Social Club Girl Pod, which has recently started up and has had its technically episode 1 come out. It's the second episode, but you can go back and enjoy that as well with Lady V, who is one of the members of our podcast here, as well as Candy, another one of our team members at Gamer Social Club. We are on all of the social platforms. We are at Twitter at gamer_s_c. We are on Threads and Blue Sky at Gamer Social Club. We have a Facebook. You have the website. Yeah, I think that's the majority of everything that I normally cover when we're doing the rigmarole. Normally, I will forget something and add it in at some point during the episode, so you have that to look forward to. But yeah, unless there's anything else I need to get to, I think we'll move on straight into what we've been playing. And I'll let you kick off, Mark, with that one because it's just the two of us.
Cheers, Harry. I've really enjoyed having more game time recently, and some of the podcast for the last few weeks. Really been enjoying having a Steam Deck. It's been opening up a whole new library of games to me. There's so much there that I just wouldn't have had a chance to play before. What's been taking up a lot of my time with my Steam Deck for the last few weeks, and I think this has been pretty popular across the board on Steam, is a game called Peak. Almost needs
Hmm.
no introduction anymore. The comedic mountain climbing game that can be played solo or up to 4-player co-op. I've only been playing solo and really looking forward to having a run with you guys on the podcast when we got enough time and to climb some mountains. But it really is absolutely hilarious to play. I'm having such a good time. Even playing on my own. And when you get to the third mountain and you're probably 70% the way up, and you just run out of stamina, you run into something that's poisoned you, and it's just kind of eaten into every ability you've got to climb. Just that slide down the mountain, that just to make you feel all the progress you've lost, all the way to your death, is equally parts frustrating, equally parts hilarious. And I'm really struggling to get up that third peak of the mountain. I need some co-op buddies who can hold a hand and pull me up the ledge. I probably need to get better at managing my inventory, because I think I'm eating too many apples early game and kind of peaking too early. But I think that's unusual for me because I'm normally an item hoarder in any game I play. Probably
Mm,
get to the end of Skyrim with, or Fallout with about 500 stim packs because I've been terrified to use them.
absolutely.
But it's really it's a real lesson in inventory management, with a small backpack that actually takes up some of your ability to carry and everything. But yeah, the game's absolutely flying. The developers on social media are actually really funny about it, and they acknowledge that this has almost become like a bit of a like a joke that's done so well. It started as a game jam game, and it's done absolutely insane numbers for them. I know they're localizing it into more languages, so it's going to reach more audiences soon.
Mhm.
They're looking at adding new various content, but honestly, Peak is one of the peakest experiences I've had so far in 2025, and it's really complementing the more serious gaming time that I have with Expedition 33. As I reach
Mm,
endgame now, I've just finished the epilogue. I'm just about to come to. Actually, I'm going to pause there because I don't want to spoil anything.
of course.
Coming really close to the end. So those two games, one, two, with one another, are kind of like the peak experience for me at the moment. And
Absolutely.
yeah, it's been another really good week in gaming. So we're
Fantastic,
eating
man.
good at the moment.
Yeah, man, you're playing like definitely two of the biggest hits of the year, that side by side. And as you said, you're enjoying the sort of complementary nature of the very different styles of gameplay and tone and all the rest of it, which is kind of I feel a lot of the time you kind of need something like that, especially if you're playing quite like a heavy game. It's nice to have something you can treat as a bit of a breather, something that's a bit light, either lighter in tone or just maybe doesn't require as much of a like, oh, I need to stay focused. I need to be, paying attention to the narrative and like what's being said by every character. It's like, no, you know what? I need to go and, collect some stars in Mario, or do a couple of races in Forza Horizon, or whatever it might be. Something like that just breaks up that feeling of like, this is great, I'm loving it, but also I'm feeling a bit like exhausted maybe by the experience, a little bit like maybe even like emotionally or mentally drained by it, like, yeah, or even physically if you're playing something like a difficult Souls like or something, like you can be hammering at a boss for hours and then you finish and just like, oh man, I've actually sweated, I've actually burned carbs doing this somehow, which is mad. But that's awesome, man. I'm glad you're enjoying this. And again, like, yeah, Peak is such a, they're both such brilliant stories, but we've talked a lot about Expedition 33, obviously, and how well it's done. But Peak is just that brilliant kind of like fairy tale indie of like the kind of like game that could, that no one expected, and all the, at least of all the devs. Who, as you said, have like joked about how like the game has done so well. It was just from I think it was like a 4 month or 6 month game jam. It was a really short amount of time, tiny budget, obviously, and it's sort of done incredibly well in comparison to their last game, which was the really excellent and very well received Another Crab's Treasure. So it's sort of like for them, it's a bit of a like, you put all this time and effort into this, and it doesn't do nearly as well as the thing we kind of did as a fun, just sort of side project, thinking of new ideas and just bouncing off each other. Really cool to see. And again, nice to hear that they're trying to bring it to more and more people and bring more content to it. I've definitely felt like a lot of FOMO watching like clips of people playing it, and just knowing full well that when we play it, like as a team, if we were to do like the news podcast group, like uh there's going to be just so many like funny, just wacky, just like moments, and just like people like trying to help each other up and not being able to hold on long enough so they fall, and then sort of like, you let go of me. It's like, no, I didn't, I tried. It's just, yeah, I'm buzzing to get into it. I've got it now. I think we've all got it now. I think Lady V was kind enough to actually gift myself and Adam a copy, so no excuses other than time, which is always limited, unfortunately. Um, But yeah, and again, you're
Yeah,
you're you're close to the end of Expedition 33, which is great. And like, what would be your sort of like, I guess, close to final thoughts, as it were? I mean, obviously, you want to take some time afterwards to kind of think it over and process it. But what's the journey been like for you?
I think I'll need to do exactly that, actually, Harry, is take
Mm.
time to actually process it. It took a long time to process the end of Act 1, if I'm honest with you. Jesus Christ. That was
Mm-hmm.
an emotional experience. But one thing I'm realizing as I get more towards the end game is actually I think I'm enjoying it even more the more I play it. The more powerful I become, the better I become at parrying, because the first kind of 15 hours I was absolutely ass at parrying anything.
Yeah.
But when you get to that rhythm of starting to learn how to maximize, like min-max your pictos, min-max your kind of your abilities together, and how having like the dream trio positioned in your party can really benefit, and kind of how they bounce off one another. It's just so satisfying. I mean, up until playing Expedition 33, I said on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, my game of the year had been Lush Royale Photo Sim. And I think just for now, it's going to hold on to that. But by the time I beat a certain boss and then tackle certain areas I won't disclose for the sake of spoilers for our other podcast hosts, yeah, I'm pretty sure it'll be my game of the year. I absolutely get why people love it. You know what? I think there is a genuine claim to be made that this is the best non-Final Fantasy ever. The
Yeah.
characters are amazing. The way they just synergize with one another throughout the game. It's got serious subject matter. It's like a serious story to tell, but the way that the stories intertwine, the way that they kind of bounce off one another, the humor, um, the actual open world itself is stunning. And when you get later game, the more you can see, the easier it is to traverse around. Um, and everywhere you go, there's just something new, something beautiful, something nice to see, a new ability to discover. And it feels like every time you get further, you get something new. And there are not enough games, I think, these days that have managed to maintain that momentum of discovery and ability unlocking that Expedition 33 has managed to do. Um, I'm absolutely in awe of the game. I'm in a position now where I'm sat watching all of the YouTube videos with the interviews with the cast, and of course we had
Mm.
an interview with Minoko, a voice actor on our site, which is just insane get for Gamer Social Club. But I'm kind of really invested into it, which I think is the first game since probably Elden Ring where I've actually been that bothered about lore and kind of
Mm.
the wider universe outside of the play experience. Normally, I'm not much of a lore guy. I kind of enjoy the story of the game, but I kind of accept what the game gives me and kind of push the rest to the back burner. Um, that's only really Halo and Elden Ring that have ever done it for me. But yeah, I'm invested outside of the game as well, and I kind of find myself humming the Lumiere tune as I'm making food for my son around the house. It's just really, it's a masterpiece. I'm not, I don't think I'm kind of speaking hyperbole there. It is a masterpiece, and I'm so glad that for the small development studio in what is an absolutely batshit crazy industry right now, they managed to push out something which is sublime, and the more people that get to play it, the better. And I'm pretty sure it will be on the podium for many Game of the Year awards come later this year. So, and I'm pretty sure I'm summarizing a lot of your thoughts there as well, Harry. I know how much you love it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, very much so. My review again, it's up on the site. I think I literally in the first paragraph explain like this is. I even say I think in the first paragraph, here's the score. Now let me explain why it's getting that score. Like I don't even. It's not even a case of sort of oh I'm going to withhold this. Like no 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 no. It's apparent. It's a 10 out of 10. It's a masterpiece. But let's actually look in as to why it is. Um, and yeah, yeah, I completely agree with everything you said, and I look forward to. I would love for us to do a deep dive on this game, not because I think it sort of requires it as far as like it's incredibly well written with lots of layered narrative and stuff like that, but I feel like it's also the sort of stuff that the most people, like the vast majority of people who play the game will get themselves. They don't need to go and watch a video to understand a lot of the motivations and the themes and stuff. I think it's all very well written and presented and acted out that you don't require us to sit around and kind of go through it piece by piece, but more so just so we could just talk about what a fantastic game it is and what they've done. And as you say, could this be the sort of game that kind of possibly changes the trajectory of um, certain other studios and things going forward? Square Enix has commented about Expedition 33 and what Sandful have done. Other directors are coming out and talking about it. Hideo Kojima, Neil Druckmann, like everybody and their mother is coming out to talk about this game at some point or another, and they probably will happen for the rest of the year. So yeah, I find it hard to believe that this game won't be in the conversation and likely won't be, as you say, like on the top of the podium for a lot of outlets and award shows, and rightly so. I think absolutely, it's fantastic, and I hope and I hope Peak gets that sort of attention as well because it deserves it. It's a fantastic little game. Clearly is like won a lot of people's hearts just through its fun nature and the silly kind of circumstances that you're playing through, and sometimes that's what you need. You need that balance sometimes, and video games are the best place for it because there's just so much to enjoy. Um, as far as games that I've been enjoying and playing, I'm currently covering a game for review, which I will not talk about just now. But if you have been following our work on the Gamer Social Club site, you will know that I had been covering the lead up to the Final Fantasy IX 25th anniversary, which happened on Monday of this week, on the 7th of July. And there was a lot of announcements over several months of, merchandise, events, all manner of things. Obviously, everything kind of leading up to this day and the hopeful, far-fetched but hopeful announcement of this long-rumored Final Fantasy IX remake. It didn't happen. We all do what we have to do in order to then deal with that and go back into our little hopium shells and think like, oh, but Tokyo Game Show or oh, Gamescom or whatever it might be. And for me, that involved me going back and obviously playing the original Final Fantasy IX, which I've booted up on Steam, and it's it is absolutely my comfort place, my happy place to go back to that world, the music, the characters, the design of everything, and this wonderful fairy tale fantasy narrative that feels part sort of theater like production, part sort of epic fantasy, kind of saga. It's wonderful. It's still my favorite Final Fantasy to this day. And what's really fun, actually, I mentioned it in my review for Expedition 33. It has a mechanic in it that is very, very much a kind of like spiritual successor to a mechanic in Final Fantasy IX, which I believe also appeared in a different JRPG or RPG called was it Lost Odyssey? I think it was where they had it, and the idea being that like with the Lumina and stuff like that, when you equip them, or the Pictos, you equip them, you use them for a certain number of battles, and then you learn the ability, and then the rest of the party also learns it as well, which is very cool. Final Fantasy IX had a very similar mechanic where you'd equip armor, and when those different pieces of armor or weapons or accessories would give you new abilities and passives and stuff. And again, you had to use them for a certain number of battles to earn points to then unlock them permanently. But that was only for the character who was using it. So it wasn't like party wide. So if you wanted another party member to get like a resistance to poison, you'd have to have them then wear the same item for however many battles to then unlock that permanently and then be able to equip it after taking off that piece of armor, say. So it's nice that Expedition 33 feels like it's looking forward for the genre, but at the same time, it is very much carrying so much of what has come before, as is evident. The developers talk so much about their inspirations, Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, all this sort of stuff, and other games as well. But yeah, I love going back to that game. It's still one of my favorites. Expedition 33 has fast become one of my other favorite games of all time. I've had a very good year thus far as gaming is concerned. I feel very fortunate in that respect. But yeah, that's what I've been up to, what I've been playing. So I think, unless there's anything else I want to cover quickly, we will jump into the sort of news topics we wanted to talk about today. We've got a couple, I know, that we were sort of mulling over before we started. We were talking a bit about The Last of Us Part 2 with the new mode that they've just added for free. We were talking about Romero Games, John Romero Studio, which unfortunately which apparently was a victim of the Xbox and Microsoft layoffs from last week, seemingly, possibly, maybe finding its way back, which would be great. And we wanted to highlight a couple of pieces of work that obviously we've done here at the site in particular. I mean, actually, if you want it, Mark, we can start off with yours. Why don't we do that? We can talk a little bit about Xbox stuff, and I think the best place to start with that actually is the article you just put up, your piece about Major Nelson. You want to give us an idea of sort of what prompted you to do this, as well as like, kind of how you feel about the article, what you're hoping to kind of for it to kind of get out into the ether, as it were, at this time where, again, with the layoff news, it's been an incredibly tumultuous period for Xbox and everybody related to it, to say the least.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm a big Xbox guy. I've been day one, Xbox 360 onwards. I'm really passionate about the platform. Not so much passionate about the company anymore, but certainly passionate about the platform. It's where I play, it's where my friends play. But something that's been kind of building in my mind for some time, and this totally predates the layoffs. It's just the god awfulness of messaging that comes out of Xbox and Microsoft. I think we get messages from Microsoft now. I don't think they come from Xbox. I think they come from the higher up companies, the higher up of the companies. Sorry. And the article that I put together is an opinion piece based on the changing in messaging that's happened since the departure of Larry Hryb, commonly known as Xbox Live's Major Nelson, and he'd been there for around 20 years. I think it was 22 years by the time that he moved on in 2023. And I think some of the issues predate his departure. I'm not shying away from that, but I think the opinion piece is around how since Larry Hrb's departure, Xbox have really struggled to have a transparent, a consistent, and a reliable kind of mouthpiece for the company and for Xbox. For those of you who don't really know too much about Larry Hryb as in his Xbox Live Major Nelson role, he was an original influencer, I guess would be fair to say,
Yeah, I'd
but
say so.
an
Yeah,
internal one. Um,
yeah,
so he was somebody who would deliver you the news, but it was from a face. It wasn't from the organization, and that's what we get now. We get the news from the Xbox Wire. We get the news direct from Satya Nadella. I mean, we don't want that. We want to hear from real people who care about gamers, and I think that's the angle that I kind of use for this piece is that Larry Hryb was always doing. You could tell what he did was for the gamers and for the people that love the product that he was paid to promote. He's an employee of the company. He's got a job. I get that, but he had passion. He cared about the people that were involved in kind of loving Xbox, in going to events like XO19. In London, I went to was fantastic, and it was really consumer first. Whereas now, I think the messaging that comes from the company is rarely that. I think we hear from the likes of Phil Spencer, from Sarah Bond. I like Phil Spencer. I think my opinions of him have changed a little bit, but that's largely since the Activision Blizzard acquisition, which I think has just changed Xbox monumentally anyway. But going back to kind of where Larry Hryb fits in this, he was just the person who was kind of the constant person for Xbox. He was always there. You knew that he cared about the gamers. He knew where Xbox had come from to get to where it was in the Xbox 360 era. It was winning. It was kicking ass in that time. Obviously, he was there for the Xbox One era too. Probably Xbox's worst generation. I think may not be unfair to say, but he understood what Xbox meant to people. And I think a lot of the people that are in control of the brand, and I use the word brand specifically, not company. I think that people they don't really understand the brand of Xbox and what it means to people anymore. It very much is a Microsoft message that we get as gamers. I think now I don't think we're treated as real people who in many cases are struggling financially. There are games are more expensive. We're struggling to buy consoles. I feel like we're being spoken to by a corporate machine now. And with Larry Hryb, we had somebody who was that relatable person who could deliver tough messaging in a more relatable way to the gamer. And I was really happy actually waking up this morning that Larry had actually replied to my article on Twitter,
Mm,
and saying that he was there day and night for the gamer, and that's what I was trying to get through to people reading the article. He was there for us,
yeah.
and I think he was the omnipresent person who cared about the Xbox gamer, and I don't feel like we have that very much anymore. And I'm sure I know you've read the article, Harry, and thank you for doing so. But kind of welcome your thoughts on kind of my opinion. This is my opinion, not the site's. So,
No, of
kind of
course,
welcome.
yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. None of these opinion pieces ever are representative of us as a team, unless I guess stated in the article. But no, I did read your piece and I thought it was brilliant. I mean, again, you obviously shared it with all of us before putting it up, and was like, please, everyone have a look, sort of thing. And I think a lot of us did, and I think nearly everybody agreed to a certain extent because I look at like I think it's interesting to talk about Phil Spencer right now as well in particular because in many respects, obviously, he was there. Larry Hryb and him were there at a lot of the same time. And thus, their roles didn't cross or anything like that. But it felt as if, in the recent years since Larry's left, there was, maybe this sense of like, oh, well, Phil already plays, the role he's a gamer. He's passionate about the thing he's, working in. He wears the T-shirts of all the old IPs that we grew up loving. Whether it's Battletoads or something like that. You know what I mean? And so there was always this sense of like, oh, we, kind of one of us kind of energy with it. And originally, I think that worked because, well, ultimately he was making, having to make tough decisions and all the rest of it. But he was coming in at a time when Xbox was low, obviously off the back of Don Matrick and like that, and the launch of Xbox One. And thus, anything really he could do was always going to was going to frame him in a positive way, as long as it basically wasn't part of the Don Matrix scheme. So backwards compatibility, going into Game Pass, doing all these other things, buying up, the smaller studios originally like Ninja Theory and Compulsion Games and Double Fine and Obsidian and stuff like that, and then going out and obviously then getting Bethesda and da 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 da. And that's when you start seeing, as you say, like that sort of shift, I think, where unfortunately Microsoft were then leaning that much more on Xbox because they're like, not only are you building, which is great, but also you're now buying all these big publishers wholesale, which is a lot of money to be spending. And we're giving you that money because you're telling us that if you go and buy these publishers and studios, this will all come back. And obviously things like Call of Duty have no doubt led to that. But as things like the layoffs from last week have proven, it's not going to be the other smaller titles necessarily, or some of them there are going to be ones that unfortunately are sacrificed, it seems, in order to meet the needs of the higher ups. Um, Larry was never saddled with any of that. He was, as you say, an employee. He worked for Xbox. He was very much part of the team and paid by them to promote their games and deliver the messaging, everything like that. But he wasn't saddled with that sort of responsibility. He didn't have to worry about then I have to go and make cuts, and then I have to go and send an email out to all the studios to tell them that they're going to lose their jobs, and then I'm going to go and speak on a panel about it and try and still be the guy that fun-loving Phil. It's like he never had any of that sort of problem. He didn't have to play double roles or anything like that, or more than one. Larry Hryb was always Major Nelson, at any given time, basically to the audience. And as you said, was that sort of point of contact that allowed us to be like, yeah, we're hearing directly from Xbox, but it's being filtered in a way that is palatable to us, especially if it's going to be slightly more negative news. There is always going to be outcry. There's always going to be anti-Xbox sentiment, or as there is for any platform. But at the same time, at least with Larry, you knew that if it was coming from him, it's like, sure, you can argue, oh, mouthpiece, don't pay any attention to it, bias, all the rest of it. But it's like the guy doesn't have to take the time to reword things in order to make them sound better to you. His job is purely just to deliver the information if that's what they want him to do. He could just read off a card if needed be, but he didn't. He took the time not only to make sure that whatever was being said to the audience via Xbox or from Xbox via him was being heard and understood, but then also as we've seen with the images and stuff like that you had in your article, as well as just people talking about their experiences with Larry. He was there day and night, as he puts it, for the fans, for the gamers, as part of the Xbox scene. Bringing blankets to people waiting in lines for events and stuff like that in the early hours and stuff like that, or being part of, as you say, these big Xbox celebrations, these events, these public events where people could come and meet, people they'd been playing with games online with for years, or have a chance to chat with someone like Larry, and just a share in their love and enjoyment of the games, the platform, and being a fan of Xbox. I agree. I think something has definitely gotten lost. I don't know if it's something that can get sort of dragged back, in that respect, because I think you look at the other two, and at PC, obviously, you have Gabe Newell, but he's not a spokesperson or anything like that. He's just the one guy that everyone points to as like, that's PC gaming, Steam, aka Gabe Newell. But as opposed to PlayStation and Nintendo, you've got your figureheads, but they were never like, oh, Miyamoto is gonna like put out like chummy messages to the fans and stuff like that. So no, he'll be sweet, he'll be charming, he'll bow in the videos, he'll do the clip or the snap or whatever, and he's the guy who invented nearly more than half of the Nintendo IP, so we all love and adore him. He's granddaddy video games at this point. And then PlayStation, they had likable figures like Shuhei Yoshida, who when we were talking about it, was the only person I could really think of where I was like, he feels like the closest equivalent to what Xbox had with Larry Hryb, aka Major Nelson. Shuhei was the sort of guy, especially later on when unfortunately he got moved away from being in charge of everything, kind of got put into the indie position, was way more kind of like involved with talking with the fans and talking about like the behind the scenes stuff, and kind of being a little bit more candid with his feelings about things. And then has certainly been a lot more since obviously leaving PlayStation, which is always really interesting to have. And I'd love to go back now and watch like interviews with Larry after he left Xbox. Not because I think he spills the beans or anything, but just because it would be nice to see him just being Larry as opposed to Major Nelson. And being able to just give like maybe a slightly more kind of just like relaxed, and like, I don't have to worry about things. I can talk freely about whatever I fancy, and yeah, get some insights out of him, because it's obviously a while since we saw him really. But no, I thought it was an excellent article, man, and obviously on the back of everything that happened, I think he was sort of a very astute observation. The messaging around Xbox is a constant conversation because it's been deteriorating, as you say in your article, and as you've said today. And thus, yeah, to highlight actually, they had the answer, and sadly they got rid of it, or they didn't get rid of it. He left, obviously, but they didn't then look to maybe get like Jeff Rubenstein, isn't it, who works as part of the whole like he worked alongside Larry, and all the rest of it. So, but they didn't feel like there was a sort of like natural progression of, oh, Jeff's now the new Larry Hryb, aka Major Nelson. It's like, no, they'll just remain as they are in their roles, and we're not going to refill that spot. And Phil will kind of do a bit of it, but he's too tied in with the responsibilities of being the head of Xbox. So he's going to say, oh, when I went and saw Everwild at Rare, I was really pleased with the progress they've made. It looks really good. I'm really excited to talk more about it in the future. 5 to 6 months later, cancelled. And like that there is like the epitome of like, we can't look at you in the same way we looked at Larry, because Larry could have said like, oh, I got the chance to play Everwild, loved it, brilliant. The message of it then being cancelled is not going to be coming from him. That comes from the company. That comes from Xbox. So Larry would then be like, I'm really, really sad to hear about the cancellation of Everwild. I loved what I played. I know the team put a lot of work into it, a whole decade's worth of development. Like, my heart goes out to the team. That's what we'd get from Larry. And everyone would be like, yeah, you're right, Larry. Like, that's rough. That sucks. And there'd be a little bit of softening to everything. Not diminishing anything, but framing it in a way where at least there is somebody talking about this from a human side of things, as opposed to what we got with the Xbox layoffs and Phil's deeply deaf-tone messaging to the teams. Like, just unbelievable. It didn't sound like Phil to a certain degree, you know what I mean? From what we had seen in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah. I think, thinking of the people and like at Xbox now, so like you've just said, I don't expect Phil to be doing the Larry stuff. I've never expected that. He's a CEO of one of the biggest companies on the planet. You know, he gets paid probably 8, 9 figures, insanely busy bloke. I can't imagine what it'd be like for his PA to try and get 3 minutes in his diary. But you know, I don't expect that from him. But I just expect somebody to kind of be there to represent the brand on behalf of the gamer. And I think Phil used to do that a bit. I think since he's taken over the position of CEO of gaming, I think it is now. If I have to fact check that for my article.
Yes, because
Um,
Craig Duncan, who was at Rare, is now the head of Xbox Studios or Xbox Games Studios, I believe it's called.
yes, yeah, and I think Craig, I'm sure will do a great job. You know, cracking pedigree, and you know, Ray have got their own issues at the moment, so no, we could probably we may get to that in a while, but
Mm.
yeah, I think the people at Xbox now. So I'm a big fan of someone called Tina Ramini, who used to be at IGN. She now co-presents the Xbox podcast, and she does a lot of the panel work when there's like live show events with Sarah, with Phil, with whoever. I think she's fantastic. But I just feel like there's something that was there that's not now, and it's gone. And I think kind of maybe what you were, if I'm getting you correctly, Harry, I think what you're alluding to is, you know, it's not going to come back. I don't know if that's what we need, but I think it's fine to mourn something that was good. And I think that there's kind of mourning the existence of Harry Xbox that coincides with mourning the good times of Xbox, which I think Xbox will be fine. I'm in no disillusion; it'll be fine. But I think it's gone from being a game first company to a part of Microsoft that's been given $70 billion, which I just can't even imagine what that figure would look like on the screen
Yeah.
in terms of finances. To you know, and obviously the pressure that comes with that. To be responsible to you know, for Phil to be responsible for that kind of money is just, it must be so intimidating for him. And obviously Xbox needs to change, but I just think there's that kind of part of me that feels like the Xbox gamer, the people that have been here for a long time that didn't jump to PS4 when it's probably should have. I admit I probably should have in hindsight. I feel like we're just being a bit forgotten about now. And although I'm going to continue to game with Xbox, for at least while my friends remain on the platform, I feel that that time is just kind of been more swept and swept under the carpet. And I think I'm probably not the only one who mourns that period of what still is a great platform, but is completely riddled with bad messaging issues and has a big PR problem that it just seems to dig its own hole deeper and deeper for all the bloody time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Yeah, and I think what you said was very poignant there, which is that there is nothing wrong with mourning something that something that was good. You know, um, it doesn't mean it has to come back, as you said, that maybe we don't need it anymore. Maybe we shouldn't have it back now in the climate that we now have. But yeah, it is always still worth looking back and remembering the good times. Um, as you say, I think yeah, very healthy approach to it. Um, and yeah, I mean, again, moving on to sort of again adjacent bit of news. The Xbox layoffs obviously hit a lot of different parts of the business. The Xbox Microsoft layoffs again qualify. Already mentioning things to do with Rare, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but also, there was the news around the Romero Games Studio, obviously helmed by John Romero, again another iconic, legendary figure in games, the creator, the father of Doom, and that sort of thing. You can't not talk about video games and miss him out, sort of thing. Um, so there was news that unfortunately funding had been pulled from the studio, unless they were going to have to shut down. They weren't going to be able to make their first project. Romero was leaving the studio, all this sort of stuff, and it seemed to be very much tied to Xbox pulling funding. They seem to be the culprits, as it were. And then, of course, in last few days, there's been some sort of headlines filtering in here and there, which, again, I don't think anything is solid as of yet. So this is very much a sort of reportedly situation. Um, but it does seem as if there is maybe some interest around the idea of trying to, find funding for that, and not just from the studio side, but actually from like publisher side as well. That it sounds as if there's some interest from other parties. Um, and the same thing with the Perfect Dark game. Again, not from the studio, unfortunately, because again, the initiative, the studio, set up to develop the first quadruple A game at Xbox with Perfect Dark was shut down, and Perfect Dark was cancelled as part of the layoffs. But this, the voice actors have been taken to social media and calling for people to, help with Perfect Dark and keep it going and keep running. Who knows? That's obviously far more in Xbox's control because it's their IP and things like that. So that's probably far less likely to happen. But fingers crossed, with something like the Romero Games situation, like they find a good partnership somewhere and they can continue with their work because again, I think we knew little tiny details about it. I believe it's a first-person shooter, so still sticking to his wheelhouse, which is great. But it would, fingers crossed, we get some other, silver linings out of all this, some other like rays of hope after this horrible storm, as it were. But yeah, I mean, how did you feel about? Was the news of Perfect Dark being cancelled like a big deal for you?
I think so. Yeah, I would say that given the showing that it had at the Xbox Summer Showcase 2024, it was game of the show for most people. I think it looked absolutely banging. It kind of had that perfect dot DNA, but had been brought up to date. There was stealth, there was quality looking gunplay. And to me, that's an absolute match made in heaven. I love kind of it almost felt like a Deus Ex in many ways. And I
Mm-hmm.
love that Deus
Yeah.
Ex. I think they're superb. Um, yeah, I think it was an absolute disaster what's happened there. And to be honest, I think the writing was on the wall for a long time for Perfect Dark. The loads of people had left the studio. They brought in the Crystal Dynamics, I think it was. They
Yep.
brought in
Yep.
them to try and save the day, and probably a year, 18 months, and it still didn't turn around. We'd only seen one trailer and the initial teaser. I think the writing was on the wall for a long time, as was Everwild, and I think I mentioned about that last week. But yeah, a real shame for Perfect Dark, and yeah, I did see the article. Oh well, an article around the voice actor trying to get some kind of bring the game back to life with a different publisher. I don't think that's going to happen. I'd be absolutely amazed, and I think Xbox probably want to bury that IP as far under the sand as they possibly can now. I don't think they want anything to ever come of it again,
Mm-hmm.
given what's happened. Um,
Yeah.
on the John Romero studio, yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone really knows what's exactly going on there. Apart from a a tweet by somebody who confirmed they were laid off by Microsoft, who was at Romero Games.
Mm.
Um, it's never actually been black and white. I mean, that they've kind of insinuated that Xbox is the publisher that cut their funding, and I think it's obvious, but
Mm-hmm.
it's never been absolutely clear. Um, but hopefully they are able to shop around the new IP to various publishers. I would be surprised, given John Romero's pedigree, if we don't see something come back to life.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think he speaks for himself, and um, I think they're Galway based, and I don't know how many island based game studios there are. I've got to be honest, I can't really
Yeah.
think of it
That was a
all. So
surprise
it's
to
a
me
strange
as well.
place.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, I'm sure I'm missing some, but Ireland's got a huge tech scene,
Mm-hmm.
but game development scene, I can't really speak for. So yeah, obviously, it might be a little bit tricky to develop a game there. I think there's lots of tax breaks that you can have in the tech industry out there that might make it more appealing to publishers. Um, but yeah, given the pedigree, I think it will. I think it will come back. Um, Romero's comment was they were trying to, or the studios, I can't remember which, they were trying to get it over the finish line, which to me suggests that it's not really early on anymore. It's at
Mm-hmm.
least probably halfway, that they know what it's going to be. They can pitch it to publishers.
Yeah.
Well, obviously they'd pitched it to Microsoft for God's sake. So I think it will come back. I just feel like those things have a bit of a poison chalice about them. Like that those stories of what happened live on online.
Yeah.
People will always relate it to what happened with Xbox, and that could be a good or a bad thing. But we know that in the modern era of of news. Everything lives online for a long time and never goes away. But you know what? If the creator of Doom can get a game pitched to a publisher from God knows where, who the hell can? So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
going to do a little one.
Yep, yep, absolutely. You know, there's definitely been, I'm sure, some scuttlebutt online about there always is about budgets and the size of AAA studios and that sort of thing. Should they maybe think of bring it down a notch or two, or making some cuts here and there? Do we need quite as many? Does everything need to have full voice acting? Or does everything need to be high fidelity graphics? Does everything need to be an open world game? Or full of like complicated systems and things like that. Like I don't know. Sometimes you just need a peak, you know, and maybe that's enough. Who knows? Um, but yeah, I agree with you. I think we're going to hear about the Romero game situation soon. Well, not soon, but I think we'll hear something about it maybe in the next few months or something like that. And then, yeah, fingers crossed we maybe see it, our first, sightings of it next year. That'd be kind of cool. Exactly. Yeah. Um, I think the last bit we'll do with the Xbox, and again, we mentioned Rare earlier, talking about Everwild and things like that, but um, wanted to highlight the fact that the Sea of Thieves team actually held their first ever community direct yesterday on July 10th, where they had several members of the team, including Mike Chapman, the creative director, sit down and talk about sort of a little bit of a look back over the last year of Rare and Sea of Thieves. In particular, focusing on that, and then kind of a sort of what's going to be happening going forward, how are things changing with the team and things like that. Um, Obviously, I mean, it's hard to say when this was recorded or anything like that, but no mention of anything that's happened, obviously, regarding the layoffs or anything like that. Everwild was not mentioned by name or anything like that. So it was solely about Sea of Thieves and Rare talking about Sea of Thieves. Um, so you can't know if these were maybe decisions that were made prior to what happened or because of what's happened. But at the same time, it was their opportunity to, as I said, reflect on what they've done for the last 12 months or so, and then explain like what they want to do going forward, how they're going to change things internally with the team structure and things like that, to then approach the things that they want to do, tackle the problems that they feel there are. Um, I did an article covering basically the main big key announcements and reveals from it up over on the site if you want to go check that out. But obviously, it's about 50 minutes, the full video, and again, they cover a wealth of topics there, as I said. And they're quite candid about things as well, which I appreciated. Again, Rare have always been pretty good about being transparent about stuff when they've been able to be, especially with Sea of Thieves from the beginning. I remember watching like the OG like post-launch updates and stuff like that, and it was literally like Craig Duncan and like Greg Mail standing in front of a whiteboard with like what they were planning to do written on it and stuff like that. Like it was so kind of just like clearly in the office, like, oh crap, the fans are getting upset, we need to do something quickly. um and I love that, just sort of like clearly it's just sort of very kind of like immediate kind of response approach, and just being super open about things. And again, they were during this, they highlighted a bunch of things that they feel had been kind of falling short on, things that maybe focused too much on, and how they're going to address all that. As well as then like talking about the big updates and stuff that are coming to Sea of Thieves. The probably the headline one being the fact that they are planning to bring custom servers, private servers as it were, to the game as in the start of 2026, which is one of those sort of features that fans have been asking for a long time. Just the opportunity to run your own server, have your friends come on and just play with the people you want to play with, as opposed to being going out into just like the sandbox kind of everybody's like here and whoever's on your servers who you got. That obviously was a fun and exciting reveal for fans. Um, and with it comes a lot of customization. You basically get access to the Sea of Thieves as you play it in the regular game, but you then get full kind of creative control as far as using toggles and switches and programming certain things to set things up. You can call in assets, you can change the time of day, you can change the weather, I believe. There's all manner of things, and along with it then you also get like a really fantastic in-depth photo mode, and things like that. So there's a whole bunch sort of packaged in with this custom servers, or custom seas as they're calling it, kind of thing. And I think the caveat that obviously then stuck out to everybody, but if you are anybody who knows about games providing private servers and things like that, it will be on a subscription service. You will sign up as somebody who wants a custom server for Sea of Thieves. You will pay, we can assume, a sort of monthly subscription to keep that server going. And, there will be, I imagine, some sort of limit of how many players can join it and all the rest of it. But otherwise, it's sort of, you pay your subscription, you get access to your own server, which is entirely yours, and only the people you want on it can come onto it. And I believe they said there were going to be some other benefits tied into that as well. No doubt there'd be maybe things like giving you currencies and things like that, or bonus items in the game, things, just little treats and gifts. But yeah, that was probably the biggest announcement. And again, I watched it live, foolishly kept the chat on, which is always a mistake. And as soon as the mention of a subscription service came up, there was just rare L take all throughout. Just yeah, exactly. And then like I appreciate the fact that no one wants to spend money. Especially if you've bought a game once already, unless you're buying like an expansion. It feels like you probably are used to like not spending more money on a game because you've got what you want from it. But but people do have to understand that in order to provide a service like servers, private custom servers, that's a far greater cost, I think, all in all, especially one that's a consistent cost, because they still have to keep them operating. They have to run the servers at their end in order for you to have access to one that you could then use. So it's not a simple matter of paying an artist to make some more assets. They'll get paid for those assets. They'll be paid for the work they've done, but then they're not having to pay dividends on the work that they've already done for something like that. They'll be paying the artist for other work that they're doing. A server sits there as a server, and you have to power it, which costs money. So the idea that Rare are asking people to pay for these things, to me, seems not only entirely sensible and reasonable, but not something is worth getting upset about until we don't actually know the full state, set up, the system, however this is going to be handled, basically. So yeah, I don't know. Have you had any experience, either having your own private server or having a friend of yours who's had one that they've been running or anything like that? Is that something you've ever done before in the past?
If I'm honest, no, not really. I think a lot of my multiplayer game time is shooters, and typically the best way to play a shooter is with a
Mm-hmm.
lobby full of absolute clowns who are probably the same kind of people that were in the YouTube comment sections. So go back to the dark days of the savage Modern Warfare 2 lobbies.
Of course.
But
Yeah, yeah.
harden my skin a little bit, I think they did. But you're right. Ultimately, like this is frankly a simple misunderstanding of the economics of how much it costs to run a server. Let's be honest. Sea of Thieves is an ancient game now. What is
Yeah.
2018? I think it came out. If I'm
That's
not
right. Yeah,
mistaken.
7 years this year. Yeah.
So you're going to be able to pick it up for next to nothing, and it's been
Yeah.
in Game Pass since launch. If you want to run a server, you need to step up a little bit. And you know what? If you're a group of thieves that want to sail the seas and have your own server, clubbing together, guys. Just pay together. What's it going to cost you? A few pound a month each. It's really not
Yeah.
going to break the bank. And I think what the key thing is, they're not going to take away the core experience of the game. If you want to play on your custom server, go and pay for it. If you want to play the normal game, that's still going to be there. People are just so vocal about anything that involves cost, and rightfully so. I said earlier, and I don't want to sound fickle, because gaming is more expensive than it's probably ever been.
Yeah.
So, but it's a simple misunderstanding of the economics of trying to get your own server. And I don't know if they mentioned price yesterday, Harry. Your write-up was brilliant. It captured everything, but
Thank you.
I didn't see anything about a price in there. But what's it going to be? $10 a month at most. They're not
Yeah.
going to price it more than that, surely.
No, not for just simple access to a server and like that. I would imagine. No, at that point, like they said, they did say again, no price was clarified. Obviously, they will give more information closer to the time. But they also, even in their streaming like that, and I think on the website afterwards in a sort of follow-up post, said that they wanted to talk about it now so that fans were ready for this. So people knew what to expect, instead of it being a case of like, next month custom servers are available, you have to pay this. At least this and it kind of ties into what they were talking about a lot of their need to communicate with their fan base better, to continue being as transparent as possible. This is them doing that. This is them showing you months ahead of time, literally half a year before it's even probably going to come into effect of any sort, what the intention is with custom servers and stuff like that. And it obviously gives the fan base plenty of opportunity to voice their opinions about it, give their feedback to the team, and say like, well, you need to tell us why we're going to be spending money, because I'm someone who does not understand why I need to pay for a server, and thus you need to convince me that what I'm buying is worth my money. That what you've said already isn't enough for whatever reason. That's fine. But for those of us who either have an inkling of how this works, have experience running a server ourselves, or been part of one with friends, or just been part of a Netflix subscription, for Christ's sake, like if you're on a family plan, like, you know, there's how many of you on it? You all put in, and then you've all got access to it for the months or whatever you're using it for. Treat it thusly, you know, and you know you won't even notice that, you know, what you're spending on it, and you'll have this server for yourself and your mates, and you know, and have your jolly cooperation, or your, you know, whatever it is you want to do in your own time on your own server, which would be great fun. But yeah, I think it's clever of them to have got ahead of this in this way. You know, alongside this, they obviously announced a whole bunch of other stuff. They gave teasers towards the following season after season 17, which is the next one. And in season 18, they're going to be doing a whole bunch of new stuff involving one of the regions of the Sea of Thieves, an existing region. And so if you're a fan of Sea of Thieves in particular, if you're a fan of Rare, but yeah, if you are somebody who plays a lot of Sea of Thieves and are still up playing it now, 7 years later, definitely worth checking that out. Watch the live stream, absolutely. It's up on their YouTube channel still, but I have, you know, covered the vast majority of it, except for like nitty gritty stuff to do with back end things like anti cheats and stuff like that. So yeah, if you want to learn about all of that, which is going on with Sea of Thieves, worth checking that out. And yeah, I think that will kind of wrap us up for the Xbox bit of the news, as it were. We kind of got all that done out of the way, and we could talk about a couple of other little stories here and there. Yeah. I mean, as I said near the top, obviously the other one that stuck out to me at least was the Last of Us Part 2 Chronological mode, I think is what it's called. That was dropped by Naughty Dog as a free update. It's not a paid for thing. It's just something that everybody gets who owns the game. I'm assuming it's only on the PS5 version. I haven't clarified that. I'll be honest. I don't know. But I'm going to assume.
I believe that's the case. I believe that's right.
Yeah, that sounds right to me. Again, I don't know. Again, I'm not a Last of Us fan, I'm afraid. So, you know, if I'm woefully out of touch with the details on that series, apologies. But the news as it were about it is that it is getting this new mode in which to play the game, which sees the game reordered so that you are experiencing the stories of the two main characters, Abby and Ellie, essentially sort of in a way that has them playing sort of with at this not that you're playing them at the same time, but you're cutting between them but keeping the time frame closer. So instead of it being you play the whole chunk of Ellie's story and then you play the whole chunk of Abby's story, which is happening at the same time, you are bouncing backwards and forwards between the two of them to keep in step, as it were, keep a pace with each other. I can't remember if I've asked that, Mark. Have you played The Last of Us at all?
Yeah, I absolutely love the games. I've only played each of them through once. I would definitely put 2 in probably my top 25, 30 games of all time.
Nice.
I love 1, but 2 to me was just, the story of Abby was just absolutely sensational. I think she tops Ellie as a character. Just check, yes, definitely only the PS5, The Last of Us Part 2 version of the game that's running on, and of course the modern PC Steam Epic Game Stores versions. Oh, and the chronological, I mean, I'm just starting to question now, and it's almost becoming a bit of a joke on the Twitter streets of how much Sony are milking this franchise at the moment. It's having a moment with the TV show, and the TV show's great. The games are superb, but you know, like how much milk is left in this cow anymore? Like the chronological mode, like okay, it's free. People are gonna lap it up. There's new trophies. There's new things to do. New way to play. Why? I don't know who was asking for this. If I'm frank, I'm sure there are people that would much prefer to play the game that way. But the story of The Last of Us 2 is told in 2 different perspectives at different times, like you say, and I think that tells the story in far better of a way than I can imagine a chronological mode would. I think it's the artistic direction was the initial way it was delivered, and I think adding a chronological mode It gives you a new way to play the game. Yeah, it mixes it up a little bit, but ultimately, there's just not a lot in there. And they've done a lot of updates. There's been more free stuff that's come with the PS5 and the PC versions in recent months. But I've got to be honest, I'm not seeing any real need for this. And The Last of Us just keeps getting re-release after re-release on disc. I seen a guy tweet just this morning about the latest physical collectors. I can't remember the name of the edition. It's got a nice, lovely white box, to be fair. But he's opened it up and it's got the version 1.0 discs, and so it's not even the modern version of the game. So you're just basically getting a rebox of something. And when you see that, you just start to kind of lose a bit of developer and publisher faith in that. I just think those practices kind of stink. Ultimately, somebody chose to buy it for the fifth time. That's up to them. But I just think I kind of wondering. It's almost becoming a meme online now. What's next in for The Last of Us 1 or 2? How can they resell us this game for the fifth time? And you know what? The games are amazing. Yeah, I'm definitely going to replay them at some point in life. Maybe even on my new Steam Deck. But
Mm.
um, I'm being honest, man. I don't get this whatsoever. But maybe you have different opinions on it, Harry, than I.
No, I mean, as I said, like I'm not deep into into the Last of Us scene like that. It was the sort of thing that when I saw the first one, I was like, that's really cool. Love the premise and everything like that. But I'm also one of those people who doesn't tend to play realistic games as about regular people because I'm like, I live in the real world. If I wanted to be sad, I'd look at the news. You know, I don't.
To be fair, the real world's probably even more shit than the Last of Us world.
It's getting that way. Beforehand, when you had the Last of Us One, it was like it's not too bad, I guess. But now it's happened. Like, oh yeah, yeah. But no, it's yeah. I definitely respect it as a series. I recognize how fantastic they are as games. But yeah, just not my cup of tea necessarily. I'm sure I'd get around to them eventually. But yeah, my feelings on this are very much like you. I think as far as the gamers are concerned, the gaming audience, the first fans of the IP of Last of Us, I don't think this really means anything except for another excuse to play the game and see what the chronological mode is like. But otherwise, I've seen a lot of people who obviously are within the gaming sphere on social media talking, basically quote tweeting this thing or quote posting this thing and saying, um, "Oh, we're just completely doing away with like the narrative structure of this game and how it's meant to deliver its beats and stuff like that." And again, as I say, as someone who's not experienced it, I'm purely going off of what other people said about it, and thus if that I can feel like that makes sense. Again, I think of a film as a really obvious example. I would not suggest taking either of Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction or Reservoir Dogs or Kill Bill or anything where it's cut out of order and then reorder it like that.
Never do that for fiction, please. Never,
You
never
know
do
what I
that.
mean? Like that
Oh,
would be
oh, oh,
sacrilege.
oh God, no. Oh
Yeah.
dear.
So to me, that's how it sounds. As as thinking of it as someone who has experienced the original media, or I haven't, but I know that there is an original form of the media that makes sense narratively and all the rest of it, its structure. And this one coming in feels like a sort of this could be viewed as purely this was a suit decision because they started playing the game. They're like, I found it really confusing. You should put it in order so it makes more sense. Um, but honestly, I think the reason why this exists is because it is being made for uh, fans who are coming into this from the show, from the TV show, as opposed to the gaming side of things. So they've experienced the story as they know it from watching the 2 seasons that have come out, and I believe the third season is meant to be happening. I'm not sure. And again, I don't know how they've cut up the um of like at Last was Part Two. I don't know what bits are in where and things like that, but it feels to me like they've done this purely so that people who have watched the show who may now be interested in playing the game, maybe their partner has a machine or their child has a machine they can use, or they're just all like, hey, you know what? I've got my own, but I've never played the series. Let's check it out. This is something that maybe for them is more easily palatable because if you go and play the original version, you might go like, well, how? Wait, no, that's not how it happened. That's not what happened next. All this sort of very easy to kind of get confused about something like this, I guess, if you've not seen it in its original state before, and it's been changed then for the version you've experienced. So yeah, that's my only argument. That's really the only reasoning I can see behind it that makes any actual sense. Um, Otherwise, as you say, it just seems like someone had the idea in the boardroom and was like, ah, chuck it in. You know, it's another update. It's keeping the IP rolling. You know, another turn. Um, yeah,
The only other way that I can kind of see that this would have been beneficial, if I'm honest, and it's not something they've written about in the article here, is an accessibility thing. Because some people may struggle with the concept of differing timescales, and I know there are lots of
yeah,
TV and TV shows that have bouncing timescales that absolutely fry my brain. You're like, where the hell am I? Like, I'm really not sure what's going on. But that doesn't seem to be the angle. I think if you are somebody that struggles with kind of alternating between different timescales, this will be really useful for you. But I don't think accessibility is a thing here. Which, you know what, maybe would have been a good marketing beat for them, if anything, actually. But yeah, I don't think that's the angle for this. But I think it possibly could be for some people, and I hope they find use in that.
yeah. Again, it's a free update. No one's being asked to pay for this or anything like that. And I believe it also comes with some extra little bits and pieces. Like I think there's fun skins for two of the characters. I think Joel's been given a Nathan Drake outfit, which feels like a sort of, I get it. Obviously, it's Naughty Dog IPs, but it's sort of like oh, okay, interesting. Like, not what I would expect, but yeah, fun. Good, a nice little nod to one of your older IPs that obviously fans still hold near and dear to their hearts, as it were. But yeah, otherwise, like you, and the accessibility thing obviously makes a lot of sense, I guess. But yeah, just not something I'm like, yeah, this had to happen. This was necessary. But yeah. Now, I'm trying to think what the other bit of news we had lined up was. I couldn't find it on my phone just now. I was trying to find the little short list we had up on our Discord chat. Um, was there anything else that
The
you fancied highlighting, buddy, before we maybe sort of close this out?
The only other thing to highlight, and by the time that this show goes online, the article around it should be, is the Ghost of Yotei PlayStation showcase from last night. And I can't claim to be an expert on Ghosts of series at all, having not played Tsushima. Unlikely to play Yotei, if I'm entirely honest, but there would be a full article going online on the site. And the consensus I'm hearing online is that the showcase was good. Almost 20 minutes of really good gameplay, lots of new innovations to how people are going to play as the protagonist Atsu, and the storyline sounds like it could be pretty tidy as well. Obviously, you've had a really big year of Japanese influenced games with AC Shadows coming out earlier this year, which is still sat in a seal on my shelf, and it probably will be for another year or so, I would imagine. But I look forward to getting to that. But as part of the showcase, Sony confirmed that there's going to be two new consoles and two new controllers in the style of Ghost of Yotei. So sticking with the standard white of PS5, but with either a gold or a black, like drawing kind of something related to the game, which I like a mountain related to the game on the console. Personally, I think it looks a bit lackluster and a bit of a kind of uninspired console design, but I'll let people make their own opinions on that. But yeah, but overall, it sounds like it's been a really good showcase. By the time we're publishing this podcast, our article will be online, and I think there's a lot to look forward to for people who are looking forward to the sequel of one of the last gen's most loved games. So I'm sure you got lots to look forward to, and be surprised if we don't see that in the Fold 4 Game of the Year contention come November, December too.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you on that. I think it's going to be on. I think it's going to be on the short list, like a lot of like we've said with Expedition 33 and things like that. Excuse me, and things like that. But I watched it last night. I'm not writing up the article on it. Somebody else is doing that at the team. Um, but I did watch it. And yeah, as someone who enjoyed Ghost of Tsushima a lot, I really enjoyed that. I thought it was fantastic. Watching this, I was just like, oh, you are literally just taking the first game and improving on everything, it seems. Even the things that didn't feel like they needed improving on, which I'm very impressed by. You know, there were certain things from the first game that I already felt like were raising the bar as far as things like open worlds of exploration and narrative and just general world building and things. And they have sort of doubled and tripled down on that in a way that I'm just like, oh wow, this is so kind of so sort of attuned to me. It feels like as a gamer, as a simple example, one of the things I really liked was like, yes, you can go and just find these little shrines out in the world that unlock new abilities for Atsu, the character you play as. Um, but at the same time, if you don't just find them organically, you can go and find a trader, a merchant, wandering merchant with his cart of goods, and you can buy basically like little maps, little fold-out parchment maps of an area on your map. And then what you do is you basically match that piece on your map, and it will then sort of like sync into it and put the icon of the thing that you're trying to find, like the shrine, from the parchment you had onto your map, and kind of seals it on. So it's like you've worked out, looking at your own map, you've done a bit of orienteering, and you've compared the little bit of parchment you have to the map you've got and worked out it's there, and then it's on your map permanently. And I love that sort of very kind of what feels like a very kind of like realistic approach to like discovery. If somebody else had that information, they could give you a piece of parchment that you could look at and go, oh, that looks a little bit like this if I turn it that way. Oh, it is. It's that place there on that crossroads or something. That to me very much is like, oh, that's fun, organic exploration and discovery, but handled in a way where it's like you can just find on your own, or if you need a little bit of help, here it is. But it's still a fun way to do it. It's not just simply press button to pay money to then have icon appear on map. It's now like, here's the thing for you to go away and try and figure it out for yourself. And I really like that. And again, the write-up's going to go up, so I won't talk too much more about it. But the other thing I did like was the fact that the first game had the Kurosawa mode, obviously based off of the legendary Japanese director, where everything's in black and white and it's got like increased wind, so it really creates a much more kind of like dramatic sense of every scene that you're in. And they've sort of again doubled down on that with adding at least two extra modes, where they've teamed up with other directors, Japanese directors. One of whom again is, I think, more of a sort of like action director, who again, sort of the camera's more like zoomed in, and like blood and dirt has been amped up during combat. So yeah, really visceral, which sounds very cool. And then the other one, they teamed up with the director of Samurai Champloo, the anime. And what they've added is during combat and exploration sections, you will have like a lo-fi beats soundtrack playing instead of like your typical like traditional sounding soundtrack that you've got with like Ghost of Tsushima and they're doing for Ghost of Yotei. So if you're into the Samurai Champloo scene, if you're into that kind of vibe, if you just like running through fields on your horse with the wind whipping around you, and you've got these lo-fi beats playing, like to me it feels like a very kind of cool blend that could either be like amazing and really work, or probably quite cringe. So I don't think there's a middle ground for it in that respect. But I'm excited to try it out. Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to Ghost of Yotei, especially off the back of this. I don't want to see any more. I don't need to see any more. I'm ready. So yeah, very excited for that. But that isn't what I'm most looking forward to, which is of course how we like to close out our segments. I think that's possibly the first actual like segue that's ever happened, possibly.
Well done.
But
Well done.
thank you. But yeah, of course, we like to finish out here with what we're looking forward to. And very quickly, I'll just say, excuse me, sorry, that I am buzzing to get to the new Astrobot levels that they have just dropped. I think they were dropped yesterday. 5 new levels for Astrobot. My game of, when was it came out? Was it last year? The year before? 2020, yeah?
Last year, it seems like
Last
forever
year, my
ago.
goodness.
Last year.
Time, man. Oh, it feels so much longer ago. That's mad. Dear. But yeah, I'm very excited to play that. I love Astrobot. And yeah, any excuse to go back to play more will be great. And my kids will be thrilled as well. But how about you, Mark? What are you looking forward to?
A couple of things actually, and sticking on the word buzzing, I'm really looking forward to a game called Time Flies, where you play as a fly. Um, So I talked about this in my top 5 of the show from London Games Fest that we went to as a group here of the UK Gamer
That's
Social Club
right.
team, completing a bucket list of typically human objectives like learning to play an instrument, or whereas a fly you would fly across the guitar and strum it away, or another bucket list objective be getting drunk, so land in somebody's spilt wine and lap it all up. But yeah, that's finally got a release date, and it's coming, within the next month. So really excited to finally play that. It was a really quirky game, something really out there, completely hand drawn and animated. So yeah, that's not far away, and it's coming on PlayStation 5, Switch, and Steam within the next month. So really excited for that. And sticking with the London Games Fest kind of thing.
Hmm.
So I've posted an interview on the site this week
Yes,
with
you
the
did.
developers of a game called Beyond the Board,
Ooh.
who the developer is Fragile Shape Studio, a Portuguese duo of Bruno and Guilherme. So managed to meet those in London, cracking pair of chaps. So had a really good conversation with them about their game. Beyond the Board is a single player puzzle game that transforms chess into like a shortish adventure game. So the principles of chess will play on the board that you're in control of, and you're kind of looking to move around the board. In the interview, I asked them kind of what their big inspirations for the game were, because to me, I seen things like Death's Door, which is one of my top indies ever.
Mm.
So love the art style, love the game in that. But they came back and said the biggest inspiration was probably Tunic, which I was like, okay,
Ooh.
I like the sound of that, and I think
Yeah.
that's one of your faves as well, Harry.
Absolutely. Love
So
Tunic.
yeah, there's obviously Tunic. I'm a bit too much of a dumbass to have got through it, if I'm completely honest. I found the puzzles broke my brain.
Yeah, no,
But
I didn't
there's a
solve
lot
all
of
the
kind of
puzzles in it. That game is, yeah, that it's one of those. It's like Animal Well and things like that, where it's got like nice surface level puzzles that make you feel good, and then you get too deep and you're like, oh no, I'm an idiot.
but yeah, I mean, the developers say this is not a chess game, but it is a
Mm.
chess game in many ways. But yeah, the developer interviews on the site, that's coming out sometime this year. The demo's now available on Steam. I'd not played the Steam demo. I can only imagine it's the same one that I got my hands on with at London Games Fest. But I'm going to be playing that through again, ready for the demo disc next month. So yeah, they're the two games I'm looking forward to. And again, this is me getting access to games on Steam, which I didn't have a month ago. So I'm all about that.
There we go. That Steam Deck doing the work. Absolutely. Yes, and again, yeah, you got that interview up on the site already, and thank you again for mentioning the demo disc, because of course that will be, as you say, for the next one. But our new issue of the demo disc is up right now. It is issue 6, which is another bumper issue, because during last month we had Steam Next Fest, which always drops a whole bunch of demos, a lot of which are limited for the period of Steam Next Fest, but some do stay on afterwards. So we've got that up right now, up on the site, and it has over 20 demos for you to check out, of a variety of different titles. Some that are out, some that are future releases, and who knows, you could find your next favorite game, as I like to say. But yeah, I think that's us finished with the show today. If you have enjoyed the show, please do leave a like on this video. If you have any feedback for us, if you have anything you'd like to share, any thoughts, any sort of feedback or anything like that, yeah, please leave it in the comments below. And of course, if you'd like to see more content like this, please consider subscribing to the Gamer Social Club YouTube channel. As I said, these go up every week alongside our Past Chat podcast on the weekends and Girl Pod, which I believe goes up every Monday, if I'm correct. Everything that we've talked about today, if there are any of the articles that we've talked about or anything that we've referenced that isn't ours, it will all be again in the description below, alongside links to our socials, whether it's the websites, our own personal ones. It's all down there for you to check out in your own time. But yeah, thank you, Mark, for joining me today. This has obviously been a fun one, just the two of us being able to talk some games, which is nice.
Right. Choose a new crowd. It's been great.
Yeah. Thank you, man. Yeah. And of course, thank you to all of you who have been listening and watching. Uh, have a great week. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Play some great games. And we'll see you all soon. Bye bye.
Cheers, guys.